Hi, I'm Hazel, and today we are taking a look at the most interesting and useful crafted items on the Shadowlands Alpha. Let's dig through some profession journals. Starting with Alchemy, in Shadowlands, alchemists will be able to craft weapon oils once again. We have the Shadow Core and Embalmer's weapon oils. We haven't had these in some time. If you've never used one before, it's basically a temporary enchant. You slap it on your weapon, you get a 10-minute duration, and it does some cool stuff. While those are active, they will power up special potions. So for example, here we have the new Potion of Empowered Exorcisms, or Divine Awakening, or Sacrificial Anima. All of those potions do a thing, but they do more of it if you have a weapon oil currently active. There are also just some straight up stat potions available. It's not only oil potion combos, so these may or may not be your best in slot, but if they are, hooray, you get to use weapon oils, but it is another thing that you're going to need to carry around. Alchemy is also getting a couple of new utility potions. The Potion of Spectre Swiftness is kind of neat. This one will make you move 100% faster while you are dead in the Shadowlands. That has a 2-minute duration, and if you ask me, that is a potion that you are never going to have when you need it. Because if you're not dead, of course you're never going to die. We're all invincible until we die, so a very cool potion that nobody's going to use. For a combat utility for the living, we have the Potion of Soul Purity, which attempts to remove 1 curse, 1 disease, and 1 poison. The phrasing attempts means to me that that may not be entirely successful. An interesting concept though, something that you might want to have on hand for Mythic Plus. Contrast that with the new Spiritual Anti-Venom, which cures poisons and reduces new ones, but cannot be used inside of instances. We are also getting a new Invis Pot. The Potion of Hidden Spirit will make you invisible for 18 seconds, and if you can't see anybody because they're all invisible, the Potion of Shaded Sight, well, it might not help you. It's a stealth detection pot, slightly raises your stealth detection. I actually don't know if that applies to invisibility. Somebody'll know, check the comments. Next, let's take a look at Enchanting, and there are a ton of enchants in Shadowlands, because look at all of these slots that you can enchant. We can make boot enchants, bracers, chest, cloaks, gloves, and rings. And the way they've set this up is kind of interesting. So boots will get agility enchants, or speed on kill. So if you want to enchant your boots, it's either going to be agility main stat or speed on kill. So agility tunes will probably want to put agility on their boots, but keep an extra set of boots with the speed enchant on them to use during raids. Bracers will get intellect enchants or self-healing on kill, and then gloves will get strength enchants or gathering speed. So it seems like any given player can enchant 2 utilities plus 1 main stat, unless of course you can benefit from more than 1 main stat. Chest enchants will get main stats with procs or special effects like an increased mana pool or armor or damage procs. Rings will get secondaries. Cloaks are stamina enchants, and then you can get either stamina with speed, stamina with leech, stamina with avoidance, or just stamina with some extra stamina. And then weapon enchants are back and once again have special procs. Here's a couple of examples. We have Eternal Grace, Ascended Vigor. Something that's not super flashy, but I'm really happy to see in the Enchanting Journal right away are Shatters. From day 1 in Shadowlands, you will be able to turn the crystals into shards and the shards into dust. That's really nice. That's not always something that's available from the start of the expansion, so I'm happy about that. Moving into Jewelcrafting, jewel clusters are kind of neat. So this is our first example of an optional crafting ingredient that can guarantee a certain secondary on a crafted armor piece. So I will give you a more thorough rundown on this later in this video. We'll take a look at Optional Reagents, but essentially this will let you take a lot of the RNG out of getting your stats on your gear because you'll be able to guarantee at least 1 secondary. Jewelcrafting can also create Revitalizing Jewel Doublets, which is a gem that heals periodically, increased by the amount of Shadowlands gems you have socketed, or a Straddling Jewel Doublet, which gives you speed for every Shadowlands gem socketed. I'm glad that so far I have not found a doublet gem that gives you stats for every Shadowlands gem socketed, or that's going to make it even harder than it already is to ever take off a piece of gear that comes with a socket. Also, fun trivia fact, when I started this video, I thought the word doublet only referred to the clothing piece, but apparently in Jewelcrafting, doublet can mean a stone glued to a lesser stone, and then there's 2 of them, so they're a doublet. I may be misinterpreting that meaning, but it definitely doesn't have to be a shirt. In Inscription, we have a couple of interesting things here. The Codex of the Still Mind is new, and this is an item that will allow nearby players to change their talents. Also presumably you as well, but if in a raid you find that everybody wants to swap talents around on a certain boss, or on every boss, somebody with this codex will be able to pop it and then allow everybody to shift around their talents. That's kind of cool. We also have the Writ of Grave Robbing, which is an inscription crafted item that allows you to open lockboxes. That's consumed on use. And then Word of Power is another one of these optional crafting regents. This one increases the item level of a crafted item, so that's not something that you really have to think about very much. You probably want it. This one is the most straightforward of the optional crafting regents, and it should be pretty popular. So in my mind, this is them trying desperately to give Inscription something else that keeps value aside from just contracts. Over in engineering, of course, we have a couple of good things. The Electro Jump is a belt attachment that sounds like an engineer-only blink. The Wormhole Generator toy is an engineering-only toy that will port you to some Shadowland spots. We have the Momentum Redistributor boots. This just looks fun. It will redistribute most of your fall damage onto nearby enemies, so you could just like jump off a cliff and superhero land in a pile of enemies. That sounds cool. And then we have themed glider kits. So I am deeply sorry that I don't have visuals to show you. I hope they get data mined, or maybe they were and I just missed them, but they're probably pretty good. We have one themed glider for each covenant, so you'll be able to really represent all the way off any cliffs you happen to be leaping from. And that makes it time for us to talk about armor crafting professions. So before we look at specific ones, there are two concepts we should lay out here. The first one is optional regents. So this is a thing with all armor crafting professions, tailoring, leatherworking, and blacksmithing. As you have seen, Jewelcrafting can make the regent that guarantees a specific secondary, and Inscription can make that thing for a higher item level. You can also add bonus effects, and those optional regents come from all kinds of professions, and the effects are all kinds of things. So you cannot do this with legendary base pieces, and the feature in general still seems kind of under development. Some details seem unclear. It definitely seems like you can only use certain bonus effect regents on certain armor slot items, and possibly only certain bonuses on certain armor class items. That is not super well communicated by the game yet, but hopefully it makes more sense when it comes out. But essentially, get extra stuff, use them to craft a piece, the piece gets extra stuff. The second thing relating to armor professions is there are now these relics of the past. Any crafting profession can make these. There are 5 different ranks of them, and you can craft these into gear to scale it to a set level and item level. So that's interesting. It's not really making heirlooms, but more making a specific piece of gear for a low-level character, possibly for twinking. In my imagination, this is something that you do when you're leveling a character and you just cannot for the life of you find like a pair of gloves or something. You'll be able to craft a pair of them on your max level character and then just scale them down. Alright, so over in Tailoring will be able to make some optional regents with bonus effects. We have Frozen Thread here, which will occasionally increase your frost damage done. The rest of them still appear to be under development, but I betcha there will be more damage schools of threads. There's also lots and lots and lots and lots of armor that can be crafted. It appears that in addition to the legendary base pieces, there are also regular pieces for each covenant, which just means so very, very many items that can be crafted. It's a little bit overwhelming. In leatherworking, for fun stuff, leatherworking is getting armor kits. So armor kits are a bit different this time around. In the past, it was a permanent enchant that just increases armor value. This time, it's a 2-hour temporary effect that increases the stamina of an item worn on the chest, legs, hands, or feet. I suppose there's nothing stopping you from doing all of those. There might be something stopping you, I don't know. It sounds like you can just slap one on each. And giving leatherworking consumables like this feels to me like an attempt to keep the value of leather alive, but since it's only stamina, I only really see these being bought by tanks, and only as long as they really need them. It's kind of an odd item. I don't think it's unnecessary, but I don't really get it. Leatherworking will once again be able to craft drums, but they have been again nerfed and will only grant a 15% haste bonus, which is now substantially worse than an actual bloodlust, but it's still going to give you that same debuff. This makes it even more important to have a hunter or a shaman or a mage in your group so that somebody can give you actual lust, because drums will kind of work, but at this point, why bother? Leatherworking will also be able to make its own bonus effect regents. We have one that will extend your well-fed duration, one that will absorb some fire damage, and 2 that aren't done yet. Over in blacksmithing is going to be able to craft sharpening stones and weight stones. So you can use one to increase either your weapon damage or auto attack for either a blunt or a sharp weapon. These have a 1-hour duration. So on top of just, wow, sharpening stones are coming back, the takeaway here is that the material, these are made from porous stone and shaded stone. And when was the last time that you saw a stone material get mined along with an ore? I went looking to try to figure out when it was. It's been a long, long time. I want to say not since Vanilla WoW. I can't think of an expansion-specific stone region. I could be wrong about that, but still, Notable. Blacksmithing can also craft bonus effect regents of its own. They have some that will increase damage dealt to specific families of enemies, such as beasts or aberrations, etc. We also have damage on melee hit, we have bonus armor, and a few undetermined still. It is entirely possible, and sounds likely based on the names of the bonus effect regents we've seen so far, that the blacksmithing crafted ones will only be usable on plate gear, and the cloth threads will only be usable on cloth gear, that kind of thing. Would not be surprised to see that that's the case. Details seem like they're still being ironed out, though. Over in cooking, something everybody can enjoy. First of all, do yourself a favor and read some of these food names. They are a riot. Apparently food in Shadowlands is just gross. For interesting food effects, the Seraph Tenders, or Angel Tendies, apparently, will give you healing out of combat. Quiet Hounds is a cosmetic food that is going to give you a ghostly appearance that I wish I can show you, but I bet you can guess. And then the most exciting one, check out the Fried Bonefish. This will give you speed after killing an enemy, a beloved effect from our favorite Bear Tartar of Legion. We don't know how much speed, so there's a chance that it's not nearly as good as Bear Tartar was. I can't imagine a world where it's better, that would be wild. But you should be able to stack up that Fried Bonefish buff with that speed on kill boots enchant, and now we're getting somewhere. I will say that it looks like a notably high amount of materials required to craft this stuff. It does craft 3 of them, but look at how much stuff you have to put into that. Hopefully some of this drops in large amounts. So those are some profession highlights so far. I do have some final thoughts on the state of professions so far in Shadowlands. I think that the level of flexibility on crafting armor is crazy and really interesting. Being able to guarantee a secondary and a special effect on an item in any slot, and then if you like, scale it down to lower levels, that's wild. The thing that's going to determine whether or not I'm happy about this is going to be the final item level compared to dropped gear. I think that's a very delicate balance. If it's too good, if it's too high of an item level compared to what you're getting out of dungeons and raids, people will just rely on crafted gear, which devalues actually going out and doing content. But on the flip side, if it's not good enough, we end up with the usual, which is where it never gets touched again after the first month of the X-Pack. What I am really sincerely hoping for is that they keep the item level of crafted gear competitive with starter gear and like catch-up gear. Especially in later patches, I would be totally fine with them updating the item levels of crafted gear so that we can just use those as catch-up gear instead of like your benthic Black Empire bind an account situation. Just give it to crafters and then they can sell it to all the people coming back and catching up alts. Just scale up the item level of crafted gear to the new fresh character baseline. There has to be a good problem with that idea. It seems a little bit too obvious, but I like it so far. Poke holes in it down below. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye.